So I was floating around my house and I decided to take a look at my subtle body. So I went into my bedroom very carefully. I just inched towards my physical body until I could detect it, and I tried to observe my subtle body. So I'm very careful with this because I don't want to think about my physical body and be pulled back to it. And I think that happens because the subtle body has, of course, subtle energy fields or vortices. I think it's a fundamental attraction because there's a lot of times where I can't travel. If I get too close to a subtle energy vortice, I can't travel out of it, just pulls me in regardless of what I do. So seems like a natural attraction to me. And I hovered about 3 feet above my bed until I could see and feel my physical body, because I couldn't do either of those things for some reason until I got really close to it. I got about 3 feet above my bed, probably about 2.5 feet above my physical body, and it started to pull me in towards it, and that's when I was able to detect it. So I moved back a bit so I didn't get that pull effect, and then I started to wonder why I wasn't seeing subtle energies, because usually I see subtle energies interpenetrating the physical universe when I'm out in a remote view. And I couldn't see subtle energies, so I looked intensively at my body. Still didn't happen. It's just seeing my physical body in my bed. So what I did was I made a suggestion. I said I no longer want to observe physical matter, or something along those lines. The idea of observing subtle energies is to reduce physical perception. You want to get rid of all that physical input or block it out so you can perceive subtle energies, because subtle energies are just that. They're very subtle, and physical input, both astrally and physically, will cover up these energies. I mean, there's lots of people on Earth right now that can perceive subtle energies during wakefulness because they probably have a very healthy subtle energy body or pineal gland or whatever. So sometimes you get out of body and you'll be just observing subtle energies by themselves. Sometimes you'll be seeing them interpenetrate the physical universe, and sometimes you get in a remote view where you can only see the physical matter. I actually just thought of a theory to describe the astral wind, because sometimes you feel astral wind during remote view or the real-time zone projection, and I think that might be you just, traveling through a very powerful subtle energy field, not even seeing it, and it causes stimulation to the subtle body. It's not the subtle body, the astral body, and then you're, pushed up into a different dimension or realm or something. Because I personally use subtle energy fields that I can perceive. Like, I just run right into them, right into the tight part of the vortice. I run right into large subtle energy vortices that are just sitting around in the physical universe to go into higher states. I use them as a form of stimulation, and I think when you are not able to see them, they still have this effect on you, and they'll pull you in certain ways, stimulate your astral body in ways that you weren't prepared for, and that might be why you get phased out of the real-time zone by the astral wind effect. But anyways, I was trying to find out why I was getting pulled to my body, what was pulling me. And I found these 2 points. One was under my solar plexus and one was in my abdomen. And they were just point-like, they didn't have any mass to them. And those were the sources of the pull. And they were pulling, converging on my awareness. And then I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I got a bit closer. I got about a foot away from one of the points, and I got pulled in. I couldn't resist the pull. So that's like the point of no return. For me at least, I got about a foot above my torso, or above the pull point in the middle of my torso, and I got pulled into my subtle energy body or whatever. And then I rebounded out back into an astral projection, and this time I was able to fully see my subtle energy body. But it was really hard to make out where my centers were, like my primary centers were, because I don't just go by the charts. I want to see it for myself, and I just couldn't make out exactly how they were laid out because I was lying on my side. So if you want to do these things, you want to really work with your subtle body and observe it. It's definitely best to be in the supine position while doing this. I actually don't fiddle with the subtle body too much unless I'm in the supine position and I've gotten out of body in a very controlled way. But I did do some light stimulation on the subtle body. You can stimulate primary centers within a couple seconds with the astral body, just with random energetic constructs that you control. Like I just extended an arm, except it didn't have a hand on it. It had a disc that was rotating counterclockwise pretty fast, and I inserted that in some of my centers, or one of them, and activated it. It wasn't deactivated, it was just kind of moving slowly, kind of equalizing itself with the rest of the subtle body, and I just activated it as an experiment. If I tried to slightly increase its speed, it would revert back to its original RPM, and it was rotating clockwise as well. You definitely don't want to do a counterclockwise stimulation on a clockwise vortice, or at least on the end that is rotating clockwise, because if you go around the other end of the toroid, or assuming it's a toroid, it's going to be rotating counterclockwise. So I realized that if you stimulate one center and not stimulate the other centers around it and work on the entire subtle energy body at once, the centers quickly revert back to their original speeds and how they handle energy. But with the deactivated ones, or inactive parts of your subtle body, if you were to activate those, then that helps out quite a bit. So you want to work on the most messed up parts of your subtle body and then work your way up from there. I had a fairly large energy center in my left thigh, and that's the one that I stimulated. And I didn't even think to look at my right thigh, but when I did, it seemed like the right thigh didn't have any active subtle energies. I'm sure there was an inactive center, I just didn't see it. I don't think you see them until they're activated, so just do stimulation all over where you think the subtle body is, and I think certain centers will spin up and then you'll see them. And that's all. See you later.